Hi everyone, this is Holly Haines and I work at Microsoft. I am a technical specialist for our Dynamics AX retail pre-sales team. So I specialize in the Dynamics AX retail product. And if you found this video because you were reading my blog, I just wanted to thank you for checking out my blog on MSDN, my AX retail blog. The topic of this video is our new customer search capability that came out in our Dynamics AX 2012 R3 release. So that's what I'll be covering today. Before I get into that specific new functionality, I do want to reference a couple of things that I made reference to in my blog. Really kind of going back and looking at some of the existing functionality that existed before the customer search capabilities and still exists today, just to kind of compare and contrast what we had and what we'll have now with the new customer search features. So in previous versions prior to R3, when you needed to find a customer, you kind of had a few different places or ways that you could do that, but one of those would of course be coming into this customer list form, and you certainly had some ability here to do some searches based on some predefined field search keywords here, and then we also have the filtering, or you can do the Control-G and filter on these fields. So there was some limited capability here to find a customer that you wanted to work with. But again, when you're in retail and potentially millions of customer records are in the database, it gets harder and harder to use some of these filters effectively. Just as another example of existing functionality before R3, which of course you can still use today. If I'm in the sales order form and I go to create a new sales order, I'm going to get a pop-up to have a customer selection. And again, previous functionality, you had this drop down, right? And imagine if this was filled up with 5 million customer records. That's a lot of scrolling. And of course you had the Control-G, but there's not a lot of fields here to sort of filter on. So you're really kind of limited to filtering on a name. And there's a lot of people in the world with similar names or the same name, so finding that match could be difficult. So what we've added in R3 as part of the call center functionality is a more robust search capability, kind of allowing you to use some keywords and to cross-reference multiple fields on the customer record at the same time to find a match. What I'm pointing out here is that keyword search capability is actually on this form. You'll see it here. I'm not going to demo it or talk about it today from this form. I'm going to go to the customer service form. I just like to show it there. And I also want to introduce you to that form in this video. But just know that this keyword search or the new customer search capability is accessible in other places in Dynamics AX. So you can see it here on the create sales order form. I think I've seen it, in the accounts payable when you're making a payment and you need to search for a customer. So it's in a handful of places all around the system. But I'm going to go into our call center menu here, and under journals, I'm going to go into the customer service form just because, I like this form. When I'm giving call center demos, it's sort of the home base for all the activity. I think customers that use this functionality will find that this will be sort of their go-to home base form for their call center reps. And it's really the launching pad for you to initiate your contact with your customer and then work with that customer's record, whether it be, helping them with a question about an existing order or an invoice or taking a new order for them. You'll be able to kind of access all of that information from here. But before we can do all of that customer service stuff, we have to find the customer that we're working with. So our customer search capability is launched from here. You'll see right now it's defaulting to a keyword search, which means I can kind of do some free text here and type in kind of whatever I want, whether it be like a last name or a last name and a zip code combination, or a city name or street name, and try to find the customer that way. Or I can use this drop down and select from a predefined list of searches that come out of the box with the product. And if I select one of these predefined searches, this is specific to that field on the customer form. So in this case, if I, typed in something here that wasn't a match with any email address on any customer record, I'm not going to find that customer because it's only going to look at that email address field. It's not going to try to look across the customer record and see if, that information that I typed in is maybe, in another field in that customer table. So that's kind of the power of the keyword search is, you can search across multiple fields at the same time. And so one way that you might do that is, a compound keyword search, and a really common way of searching is last name zip code. So if I did something like Smith and then 20818, and notice I am putting an asterisk in front of the different keywords that I'm typing in, and what that's doing is it's creating like that and condition. And so when I hit the enter key or I click the search, it's going to go into the database and try to find customers that have the word Smith and the number sequence 20818 in certain fields in the customer table that I can define, and I'll show you where you do that. So every customer that uses this, every company that uses this functionality in your AX implementation, you can actually define the fields that it's going to look against. So in my case, it found a match in the name field on Smith, and it found a match in the zip code field on 20818. And so it's showing me my search results, and hopefully this is the customer that I want to work with. If not, I can change my search criteria here. So I'm going to do something a little crazy and just type Smith, which in the real world would probably generate a whole lot of results. In my database, it's not going to result in too many. I don't have that many customer records. So in this case, you'll see when I type in one keyword, it's referencing, again, it's going to look across a bunch of different fields, but it just so happens that the word Smith happens to be the last name of a lot of my customer records. So we'll see that here. And I do also want to point out this record that just showed up, Adam Smith, you'll see it looks a little bit different. He has a prospect number instead of a customer account. And if you had read my blog before watching this video, I do make reference to the value of that. So what we're doing here is we're not only searching the customer database, we're searching the customer database in AX and the prospect database at the same time. And we're showing all the results that could potentially match with that keyword that we just typed in. And the benefit of that is, from a retail perspective or direct marketing perspective, if I'm, working with Adam and he's a prospect and, he's never purchased anything from my company, so I don't want to mingle his customer information or his contact info in my customer database, because I use my customer database maybe to do, analytics or do special mailings or, promotions for my actual customers. And so we keep Adam sort of in a separate place because he's never purchased from us, but I obtained his contact information somehow. Maybe it was by purchasing his name from a list vendor, or maybe he signed up for something on my website, but he's never purchased anything, so I have his contact information. But I keep him separate in my prospect database. But the benefit here is I can search on both at the same time, the customers and the prospects. And so if perchance my phone call right now was Adam calling maybe to place an order for the first time, I can see him here and I can select him and work with him and convert him to a customer now and place an order. And the beauty of that is I have the history, right? So I know that Adam maybe started out as a prospect, 2 years ago in my system, and maybe we sent him some, different prospect related marketing materials over that time, and I've been tracking those things in CRM, AX CRM. But now, we're going to convert him to a customer, and in the future, I have all of his order history linked to his customer record, and I, can marry up those two things. I see the full view of him over time, rather than, imagine if I didn't have access to this information and Adam called, I wouldn't have found him in my customer database, so I would have probably come up here and created a new customer record, and now I've kind of lost that connection, right? Or you have to do some back-end analytics or, something to try to regain that connection rather than just converting that prospect record right here. So it's very beneficial capability here to be able to do that. I do want to point out some of the features on this form, since this is a new form and it's related to customer search. Obviously, when I have my potential results here, I can, talk to the customer and sort of narrow down and figure out the customer I'm talking with. And once I know that customer, I can just click on it to select it. And then I can either say select customer, which means, this is the customer that I want to work with and I want to, move to the next step, which is maybe, taking a sales order or, looking up their order history and helping them with an order. If I didn't find any matches, I could certainly create a new customer from here. If maybe Holly was calling just to give me a change of address, I could edit her from here. We have a new feature called Send Catalog that's available. And so you can set up catalogs that you maybe offer if that's something you do in your business. And then, maybe Holly will be able to choose from a couple of different catalogs that are available. And, she says, can you send me your holiday catalog or something like that? We can execute that request from here. You'll see this last option is grayed out, and if I select 2 customer records at the same time, it will become available. And so I just did that by holding down the shift. I think you can do the shift or the control key on your keyboard and selecting the 2 records. And now we have that merge capability, which is also something that's new in our R3 release. And when I do that, I can choose who I want to merge from and merge into. So basically this person would be sort of the surviving record, and all of the transactional history, AR history, from Hannah would be pointed towards Holly Smith's account now. It's kind of important to note that we don't delete Hannah from the database at all. We still retain all of the history. We just kind of create a pointer over to Holly. So when I pull up Holly's account in the future, I will also see Hannah Smith's activity. And if for some reason in the future after I've done the merge, I do a search for Hannah Smith, I will still find her in the database, but when I select her, it will actually pull up Holly Smith's account and referencing all of Hannah Smith's previous activity as well. So it's kind of a pointer relationship, and you can switch that. So if I wanted Hannah to be the survivor, you can certainly do that with the switch. And then, of course, if I apply merge, that's going to actually execute that. Something interesting to point out, which I like to point out when I'm showing this feature, talking about this feature, is that we have an unmerge capability as well, which is sort of interesting. So if you merge 2 customers together by accident, maybe you merge a husband and wife and you find out later that they actually want to have separate accounts, we can actually pull those back apart because we aren't, again, deleting anything. We're just creating pointer references, and so we can actually unmerge if we need to, which is kind of a neat feature. Okay, so with that, for the most part, pretty simple functionality for the customer search, and not a whole lot of hard information to figure out here. You kind of type in your keywords or your combination of keywords, you find the customer, and or you create a new customer. And again, just to point this out, if I were to hit select customer here, this is that customer service form. Now I'm seeing all of Holly's orders, and I could go up here and create a new sales order for Holly, or maybe look at her invoices, or help her with some questions. So I'm not going to really cover this form in depth, but as I pointed out, this is really a nice new form in R3 as well to sort of be your landing page for helping your customers. Before I end the video, I do want to kind of go through some of the setup of this. So for example, when I first did my search, I talked about the compound keywords and how the system is looking across multiple fields. Well, where do you set that up or define that? So I'm just going to go back into my sales and marketing menu, and under the setup area, I'm going to scroll all the way down till I get to search, and then define criteria. So when I typed in Smith, these are the 5 fields in my customer search index view that were being referenced to see if it could find a match to that keyword. When I did the compound search, it was looking across these fields for both Smith and 20818, and it was only showing me the results if both of those matched. This view is obviously something you can modify. So, if you know about AX, you know that you can, add fields maybe to the customer table during your implementation. And if you wanted to add a field to this index that didn't exist before, you certainly can do that. I'm just going to, open up this so you can sort of see, this is my my current index, or kind of what comes out of the box when you, implement the system. But you can certainly add to this view, right? You can add additional fields to this view. And if you do that, if there's some new, field that you want to have part of the lookup, you would just come in here and add a new line, and then, choose that field from the drop down. Now, if you do add a new line here, or multiple lines here, you do have to refresh the index. And so you'll just choose which index you want to refresh, in this case the customer, and click OK. And depending on how large your customer database is, this could take a few minutes, or, in my case, if I were to run it, it's really quick because I only have a handful of customers. Note that the same goes for prospects. So when I was searching and I found Adam Smith, these were the fields of the prospect view that were being referenced when I typed in that keyword of Smith. Again, same concept. You can modify these or change these and refresh the index as needed. I will point out, just because it's on the screen, we also have an item index, and that is for item searching. And I'm not covering that in this video, but that is a feature, again, in R3 in the sales order screen. So when I'm ordering products for a customer, if the customer doesn't necessarily know their product number, but they know that, they saw, a brown pair of pants, and, they can't remember the item number, I could type in, compound keywords like brown pants, and the system would show me a list of products that have those matching keywords based on the index and what I'm looking against in those tables. So same concept there, which is really nice and user-friendly. The other thing I wanted to point out related to setup of this, again, in that same place under sales and marketing, under the setup, scrolling all the way down, under search parameters, there's just a few parameters here that you can set up. So you can limit the number of results that show up, and that's really good if you, do something silly like type in Smith, and you've got 1 million customer records in your database. You probably don't want, 10,000 matches getting pulled up on your screen. So this would just limit it to showing the top 50. And in that case, you probably would realize you need to narrow your search and maybe throw in a zip code or something to sort of narrow down the potential results of customers. And then this save search type is a nice feature if you don't always do keyword searches. So maybe at your company, your default search is by email address. So when a customer calls, that's the first thing you try to ask them to, figure out or find their customer record. And so if you have this set to email address and you close this form and you open it up again at a later time, you don't want it to forget that. You don't want it to pop back up here to keywords. You want it to remember email address and always default that as your default search type. So that parameter will allow you to do that. The automatically fill in customer search parameter is optional, and I personally don't like it checked off, and I'll explain to you why. So I'll give you an example here. So if I go in again and I type, in this case, I'll just type Holly Smith. So I'm typing an exact, sort of name. And in this case, there's only one match. But of course, I might want to just verify, that this is the Holly Smith that I'm talking to. Is this your address? Maybe I'm not talking to the Holly Smith from Cabin John. Maybe I need to actually create a new customer here. So I personally like that I get the search results, even if there's only one match. But what this parameter will allow you to do, and I'll just turn it on here so we can see it, is once I've enabled that, if I search for, actually, I'm going to do something just so it shows up on the screen a little bit better. So right now I've got Stacy Smith on the screen. And if I type in again Holly Smith with that parameter now enabled, it's just going to select Holly Smith automatically and populate her into the form because there was only one match. So it's basically assuming that this is the customer you want to work with. Again, it's really a matter of preference. I personally don't like it. I wouldn't, especially for a demo, I like to show that result screen even if there's only one match. So I disable that in my demo environments. So with that, I've covered really the end-to-end capabilities there around customer search. Hopefully that was helpful and you can utilize some of these features in your environment or in your demonstrations or in your implementations with customers. Again, if you have any additional feedback for me, my blog is on MSDN and I would appreciate your feedback. And thanks for watching.